And welcome to our Spooktober movie episode of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and who's with me tonight?
Stefan JD.
And Stuart Hughes.
Couldn't think of anything catchy.
No, I couldn't either.
Stuart Hughes.
Two.
DJ
Neffets.
Okay, and I'm going to introduce what lovely movie I picked for us tonight, because this was essentially my pick. We were trying to think of a horror movie to do that was video game, and there aren't a lot of choices. There's Alone in the Dark, House of the Dead. Fuck both of those movies. And we were debating on Resident Evil with Mila Jovovich, but we did end up settling on Resident Evil Degeneration, the animated CG movie.
I appreciate that you messed up her name, Mike.
Wasn't on it
Mila
purpose.
Jovovich.
Chokovich.
Oh man, the House of the Dead movie is so fucking awful. I kind of wish we had done that.
We will.
It's got Clint Howard in it.
I definitely want to do those movies. I want to do all 6 of them. And Stefan doesn't have a choice but to join us just because we need his commentary for them.
So hard to watch. It's so shitty. There's also like on the Far Cry movie as well. Anything by Uwe Boll. That fucking.
Oh, they're bad.
God, no. Okay, that would be worse than Resident Evil.
Anything. We have to be careful though, because we talk about Uwe Boll, he might try to box us, because apparently that's his fucking thing now. He's trying to box everybody who says his movies are shit.
Hey, we'll gladly cut down the movie. He can spot us out in all the social media. We'll get more hits that way.
It's hard to box 7 billion people though, so.
All right. We are covering Resident Evil Degeneration. It's a CG motion picture movie that's actually canon to the story.
Yep.
That came out in 2008.
It's the first of the canon Resident Evil films.
I don't like it.
I don't
know. It just placates too many of the tropes from Resident Evil 2. Like, okay, let's just get into this. Claire is babysitter of the year in every single story she's in.
Yeah.
And in this one, she's even a babysitter as well. And Leon in this one, I mean, it's the same voice actor from Resident Evil 4, but this time he sounds like he took like 2 Valium every time he tried to record him. He's like, I'm Leon.
We've mentioned this before, but Claire Redfield is the only responsible and smart adult in the entire Resident Evil series. So clearly she has to be the babysitter. Like Chris couldn't be. Also, like too that like this is a movie starring Leon S. Kennedy and Claire. Well, really Claire Redfield, and then Leon S. Kennedy shows up halfway through, and suddenly it's his movie.
Yeah, it does.
It's kind of weird.
It does.
But also, like,
places.
It's yet another like it's yet another movie or game where Claire exists in it. But Chris is just nowhere to be found. Like, I don't think have they ever been on screen together at all?
And they were in Code Veronica, right?
Weren't they?
Chris is in Code Veronica, so it doesn't matter.
At the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in the books, they're all on a plane at some points talking to Trevor. In the non-canon books, sorry.
Non-canon books. So in the canon, Claire has canonically seen her brother Chris, who she was looking for throughout the entire Resident Evil 2 once. I think there's like a throwaway line in like Vendetta or something where Leon meets Chris, and I can't remember which one it is. I want to say it's Leon. No, it might be Chris who's like, "Oh, Claire told me about you." And it's like, "Oh, when? When did that fucking happen? When do you two get together?"
Did she give you my email address? She does that all the time.
Except he works for the government, so it's a business card that just says Leon S. Kennedy with no contact information.
It's like my
card. And like a stencil of his hair. This is how you'll know him.
Oh, and I should say that 1, there'll be spoilers for this movie and Resident Evil stuff, and 2, this movie takes place after Resident Evil 4, but before Resident Evil 5.
Right before 5.
Mm-hmm. So, which is weird. I think they called it 4.5 is what the movie's called.
Really? That makes sense. It takes place like a couple months before 5. It's right up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I mean, there's a big thing that happened at the end of the movie we'll talk about later that I did not realize back when I watched it in 2008 because it meant nothing to me.
Okay, well, explain this to me, guys, because I didn't get this through the whole movie, and I told Mike even I had to rewatch it twice because I was like, I don't know what's going on. But at the beginning of the movie, it's in an airport, and a dude on the plane is sick, and he's going to turn. But there's also a senator in the airport who's suddenly gets attacked by zombies. I don't understand how those two things coexist. Is it ever explained?
Who's the most Resident Evil character there's ever been.
Yeah.
The most like blatantly evil U.S. senator. That's just the most like Weasley. He's like fat and bald. He's like always sweating. He's always like, I hate kids. Get me out of here. Only I matter.
I hated that guy too. From what I understand, from what I feel like the plane coming had the one zombie was a guy who was sick, who was trying to say like, hey, this is what's going on here, test me or save me, whatever. But the airport was the setup.
Well, it was all a setup. It was
okay.
So for those who don't know, this movie is basically 3 very, very distinct acts. This is like a very structured movie. It starts off, you're in an airport. Claire's in an airport. She's meeting a little girl named Ronnie and Ronnie's aunt, who I don't think they ever say Ronnie's aunt's name. I think she's just known as Ronnie's aunt.
Oddly enough, she is also voiced by Alison Court, who voices Claire also in this movie.
Oh.
Actually, they got I mean, this movie has a lot of really good voice acting behind it. You got Laura Bailey in there, Steve Blum shows up, Crispin Freeman's in there.
It's a lot better than Resident Evil normally likes to do. So,
Michelle.
And if anyone doesn't know who Alison Court is, you do know. You just don't know. Like she did the voice of Lydia in Beetlejuice. She did the voice of Jubilee in X-Men the animated series, and of course Resident Evil 2.
One of those voice actors that's been everywhere. You recognize their voice, but you don't know their face or their name.
Yep.
Is she in what's the documentary called? Behind the Voice or something? I don't know if she's in that. I think Steve Blum and Laura Bailey are both in that, but I don't know if Alison Court shows up.
Yeah.
It's a good documentary. People should watch it. No.
Yeah, that's a good one.
If you're at all interested in voice actors. Yeah, actually, no, Ronnie is played by not Alison Court. She's played by the voice of Jill Valentine, which is really funny.
Huh. I guess they had to find a way to get her in this, huh?
Yeah.
I think she did the like what happened was originally she did the voice and then there was like complications, so she had to go back in and do it. Alison Court had to do over it. Yeah.
Sorry.
Us not having facts on this show.
Ronnie's aunt, who has like 3 lines in the movie, is also a famous voice actor. Plays the Major in Ghost in the Shell.
Oh, wow.
And she's Mary Shepard Sutherland in Silent Hill 2.
Wow.
We really I need to replay that game so much for the show.
She's in a bunch of stuff too. I mean, if you start naming like some voice actors, like Steve Blum, you know him from these 5,000 roles.
One of the minor characters in this movie, one of the SWAT team guys, was voiced by the guy that did Spike in Cowboy Bebop.
That's Steve Blum.
Oh, okay.
I met him in real life. I think I've told this story in the podcast before, but I met him in real life, and basically, like, I was like freaking out because I love Steve Blum so much. So I was just like, I like you in Cowboy Bebop. He's like, oh, great. Like, he was so nice. He was like, oh, thanks, man. Like, yeah, it's really fun. And he was like really genial and kept talking to me. And I was getting him to sign a piece of paper, and he was like, "Oh, well," or like a picture of Spike Spiegel. He's like, "What do you want me to write on there?" And I was like, "Oh, whatever you want. I don't know." And in my mind, I was like, "I hope he writes whatever happens, happens," but I couldn't vocalize that for whatever reason. And he was like, "I know what I'll write. Whatever happens, happens." I was like, "I love you. Thank you. Okay, bye."
He was like, "I'm gonna need my hand back, though, Stu."
just like bawling and like snot coming out of my nose, sweating profusely. Just like, I like you a lot.
He's actually gonna be at GalaxyCon here in Minnesota here when I go in November too.
Yeah, he does all the GalaxyCons. He's really nice guy. From my 5-second interaction. He was nice enough to not be like, "Hey, get the fuck out of here, weirdo." So I think he's a very nice guy.
That's a legitimate reason.
Are you telling me you acted weird, huh?
But talking about voice actors showing up in other Resident Evil things, Laura Bailey, who plays Angela Miller, one of the 2 SWAT agents in this movie, or not SWAT, sorry, not SWAT, they're SRT, which is basically SRT. SWAT. And in addition to playing Lust in Full Metal Alchemist, she also played Helena Harper in Resident Evil 6, who is basically the same fucking character as Angela Miller in this. Like,
yeah, I was thinking the same thing when I was watching this for the second time, and I was like, "Huh, that reminds me a lot of that character in 6."
I have a theory Every time I watch this movie or every time I play Resident Evil 6, I always think about this. I think they were supposed to be the same character.
Probably.
I think when they were doing Resident Evil 6, they were trying to find a way to make it Angela Miller because again, they got Laura Bailey involved. Like I can only think that they were like,
he looks kind of the same.
They're both like
a female character with brown hair.
Yeah, tall brunettes with like the same kind of facial structure. And in this, Angela's like trying to save her brother who's gone bad. In Resident Evil 6, Helena's trying to save her sister who's gone bad.
God, I don't remember. I actually hadn't seen this movie since 2008 when it came out. Like that's why I was kind of excited to rewatch it again.
I don't think I watched it until later. I think I kind of avoided it at first because I was like, oh, this is probably gonna be. I think because I was like, all the Resident Evil movies now are shit. So this is probably.
What are you talking about? They're all good.
Yeah, they're all.
No, I remember this came out in DVD. I worked at Target in electronics. And I think I forgot it was coming out. And also I walked by, I'm like, what? It was in the new release section. I remember I just grabbed it, took it home, and watched it that year.
Is that how you got fired?
Yeah, I bought it first. No, I did get fired, but not for that. So
Okay.
I got fired. Okay, since it's been over 10 years, and we're going to say this on the show, I got fired for leaving my area to help a customer because nobody didn't answer the walkie. That's what I got fired for.
That's bullshit.
Oh yeah, what it was is that they wanted to get rid of the position. They didn't like me in the first place because I wasn't okay employee, but I wasn't like the best, but I had an attitude, let's say. And they just didn't like me and they got mad at me. And I'm like, customer needed help. Nobody answered the walkie, so I went and helped them. But we told you if you leave electronics, we're gonna coach you and get fired. I'm like, so I was pissed. But yeah, that's why it was my Target story many years ago. I'm okay telling that story because I will probably that was over 10 years ago.
The grocery store I worked at, I almost got fired once for not leaving. They were like, you need to leave. You need to go home, or you're going to go into overtime. And you could be fired for going into overtime because apparently that's the worst thing you can do as an employee in America is use your overtime. And they were like, you need to leave. But they also constantly told us, like on a daily basis, they said, you're not allowed to leave if there's customers. So I had worked I think I pulled 2 or 3 double shifts that week, and I was like dangerously close to going overtime. They're like, you need to leave. If you aren't if you don't leave, if you're not out of here in 5 minutes, you're gonna be reprimanded. And I was like, okay. And I'd go back to the deli where I worked, and there'd be customers because it was a busy grocery store in the middle of the ocean front, one of the most heavily tourist areas or tourist times of the year. And they were like, you can't leave. We need you. You can't leave. If you leave, you're going to get reprimanded. I was like, okay. And I get called over by the manager. He's like, you need to leave or else you're going to get reprimanded. I was like, okay. Back there, you better not leave. I was like, okay, I don't know who to listen to. I have 7 bosses. I don't know what to do. It's like, you guys need to just talk to you. I think at one point I told my manager too, she's like, why do you keep trying to leave? And I was like, look, talk to the store manager. You guys work it out. I don't know what to do. I'm getting conflictory information here. I don't know. I'm removing myself from the situation.
I have a story about bullshit overtime too, but we can maybe get to that next time. But I do want to say, speaking of bad situations, when this movie starts off with Claire in the airport, you end up having her get, let's say, double fucked in one way. So I like the part where she's sitting in the airport. I know that could be taken many different ways, but I'll get there. She's sitting in the airport and you see Curtis Miller, who is this guy that was on TV, who means nothing to anyone who Resident Evil because he's a brand new character.
Yeah, but he's also a brand new, obviously evil character. He's wearing a big ass coat.
When I was watching that scene, all I could think of was Dead Rising for Xbox 360. I'm like, this seems like the plot of Dead Rising. This weird guy is walking around. Nothing to do with a zombie outbreak that's about to happen. No.
Another Capcom game.
It doesn't help that he's voiced by Roger Craig Smith, who voiced Sonic the Hedgehog, so you're instantly put off by him.
We were talking a little bit earlier. Is you do have 2 outbreaks to happen. You earlier see the scene on a plane where the guy's infected, gives a note, and of course the plane's going down. As soon as you see that scene, you're like, oh well, we know where this is going.
You see the plane, and then you see Claire in an airport, and you're like, well, I'm smart enough to put 2 and 2 together.
But I did like the scene where it opens up where the senator. They end up seeing the senator, and this guy walks up to him with a zombie mask on, and he's all like, "Ooh," and then Claire just grabs the mask. She's like, "Stop it, you idiot!"
Yeah, the movie opens up with a news report because it's Resident Evil, and that's like a very Resident Evil thing to do is open up with a news report / brief history, talking about like. Yeah, it is, because it's important to the plot of this movie, specifically. They're talking about the destruction of Raccoon City, and actually, there's a lot of information in this movie that is important to the game lore that doesn't really matter to the movie. Like, they talk about how the president resigns, like, out of disgrace out of Raccoon City blowing up.
And also, people didn't know what happened in Raccoon City, did they?
No. Yeah, people were like, there were, like, eco-terrorists and activist groups that were like trying to release and like trying to figure out what actually happened, and he just didn't answer any questions and was like, all right, I'm done. This is so disgraceful. I'm just out.
So and the whole point of the terrorists in this movie is that they're saying they're going to release a virus at midnight if the government doesn't reveal who was involved in Raccoon City.
Yeah,
and the spread of the viruses and the other incidents. But
all that information, India. Of the T virus, I want to say, where people are turning into zombies or something, but they don't realize they are. It sounded like people aren't aware of what's really happening.
It goes into it's a brief 3 minute description of the beginning of the movie, but they talk about how like Umbrella was dismantled essentially, but Umbrella still exists and is like selling the viruses as biological weaponry to other countries. They talk about. There's like a very brief line that is super important to the end of the movie where they're like, this foreign general / dictator got his hands on like the T virus and was releasing it, and there's like a UN investigation going on. And it's just talking about like the state of Umbrella right now, basically.
Yeah.
Isn't Umbrella gone at this point in the history?
They're kind of. They're gone in name.
Okay, because this is after everything happens in the opening of Resident Evil 5, which I don't want to go into too deep, where Spencer's not, let's say, with the living anymore.
Yeah, at this point, actually, that happened right after this movie, I think.
Okay.
This was like right before Wesker's official, this is when Wesker was running Umbrella from behind the scenes, but before he officially killed Spencer and took over as the chairman.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's like in Africa doing some weird shit. I felt
like what happened with the events after Code Veronica and things, that Umbrella wasn't really in very good shape after all that, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah. They basically, by in name they no longer exist.
Okay.
Right.
They're like
we also have to remember that they're an international company, so if they were to dissolve in the US, they wouldn't dissolve in other countries. It would be completely different laws against them.
Yeah.
Which is why the BSAA is later created, because it's supposed to be an international bioterrorist group, or stopping bioterrorists.
Something like that.
Bio-stopping asshole activists, something.
BSA doesn't start until 5, right? Like 5 is the first occurrence of BSA. Or no, BSA is around in the Umbrella Chronicles game for Wii.
Yeah.
In the side story thing.
Well, I don't want to... It's BSAA, but yes.
Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance, by the way. That's what it stands for.
Okay.
Let's see here. I'm trying to find their first appearance. Because I know for sure it wasn't 5, because they show up in the stage show before 5. And that's like... I mean...
the stage show?
You laugh, but that's like when they were like... That's when like all the different branches were introduced, honestly. Because it's Chris Redfield and Piers working as the North American BSAA, and they're dealing with the Oceania BSAA. So that is legitimate. Like when you get like the most information about the BSAA for the first time.
Looking back of all the Resident Evil we've done on this show, part of me wishes we would have did it in like chronological order, which is too late now. But
oh man, like we'd have so much shit to slog through before we even got to like 4. To be honest.
Yeah. All right.
We're in the airport. Claire Redfield is hanging out with Ronnie and Ronnie's aunt, and Ronnie's talking about like all you know is like Ronnie's parents were killed in India, and there's also some background information about
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were killed, and like
I didn't catch that.
Ronnie's aunt works for TerraSave with Claire because Claire did not become
whistleblower organization or something, right?
It's like a watchdog group.
Okay.
Whistleblower.
I know. Let's not go there, but I know.
We're gonna get taken out. Yeah, she works for Terrace with Ronnie's aunt, and they investigate. They're kind of like a watchdog group that works with the UN. That they keep track of like all of Umbrella's fallout, basically, and where the virus is being spread, and they're more of like a humanitarian organization. They're kind of like the Peace Corps of the Umbrella universe.
They're like the Neighborhood Watch.
Peace Corps / Neighborhood Watch.
Yeah.
I did all over my computer. There we go.
I did like the idea that Claire went on to work for a organization like this, where Leon goes and works for the government. And also, like, I remember seeing this when this movie came out. I remember being such a big deal to see Claire back in a game again, even though I know Coderana came and went. But just the fact that they had Claire and Leon together again.
Well, I actually thought that Claire would eventually go on to be like a more tougher person. Like, I thought she was going to join some like black outfit group that was going to go in and just kill people without permission from anybody. That's where I saw Claire going.
Yeah, it's weird that like Claire's big reappearance in the games is in this like the remake of the second game. Like that's her big reintroduction.
Well, she's also
game she was already in.
She's in Revelations 2 also, right?
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, that's not Claire.
I never played Revelations 2, so I don't know a whole lot about it.
Yeah, I would say most fans hate that version of Claire. They don't even know.
Okay.
I mean, like that is like more badass Claire, but yeah, like Claire in this series, I think a lot of people like where Claire went, where she's like the humanitarian. Like there's even a line in this movie where she's talking to Leon, and Leon's like you became the rescuer, Chris and I became the fighters, and it's like Claire's kicked a lot of ass, Leon.
I mean, at this point, she's been in as many terrible adventures as Leon has.
Well, it's also like a funny line because this game takes place after Resident Evil 4, and Leon's like, "I'm not a rescuer," and it's like, dude, you literally just invaded a fucking Eastern European country to save somebody. Like, you were literally a rescuer.
He's kind of an idiot sometimes.
That's your one and only job in the entire series. Whenever Leon gets called in, it's to save somebody else.
Hey, that's what it is in this movie. Because you have Claire at the airport, and after the virus breaks out, and then the plane hits, so you have zombies already creeping around. You have the plane that you saw earlier crash into the airport. Zombies pouring out of that, of course, which I really did like that scene where they're just jumping out, where they're just falling out of the airplane. I like that.
That's great.
I mean, and then of course Claire ends up running away. What?
I was gonna say, it's kind of like like I said, this is a very structured film. This is the part where they introduce every single character in Act 1. You get the senator shows up. You get Claire and Ronnie's aunt, who isn't important, but you get
no, not at all.
Yeah, you see a little bit of Curtis in there, and that's your first hint that like he's involved because he's on like a news report in the background too. He's like,
and he looks like he's right out of Dead Rising. So.
Yeah, and Claire like walks by him and immediately is like, Curtis Miller, and then zombies start attacking.
You know what? Maybe you're right, Mike. Maybe that's what I was confused about. He does look like a character from Dead Rising. Yeah, I don't know if he fits in Resident Evil.
Because Dead Rising came up before this. So he looks like the guy that's the villain that released the virus in the mall in Dead Rising that you see early on walking by before everything happens.
Yeah.
It's like standard. He's like standard movie bad guy. Long black hair, big overcoat, kind of scruffy. Like he looks like if this is gonna be a weird comparison. He looks like if Tommy Wiseau was an evil terrorist. Which would be great. I did not, Tommy. I did not.
I do gotta say though, I think a lot of people don't even know this movie even exists. Like there's a friend of mine who is almost gonna be a guest on this episode, who does another podcast, who covers horror games and things, and he didn't even know this was real. He's like, "What? They're CG movies?" I'm like, "And they're canon." He's like, "What?"
Yeah.
I feel like this movie did really go under the radar.
That's surprising.
Yeah, it wasn't like huge thing. I think it's just like if you're like a big diehard fan and you want to go experience every Resident Evil thing, you'd definitely seek it out. Yeah, I mean, yeah, just for like this game. We're gonna keep saying this game because it looks like a video game cutscene the entire time.
It could be a game. Hell,
it looks like a really good cutscene from a Resident Evil game. But yeah, like it introduces a lot of background information that leads you from Resident Evil 4 to Resident Evil 5, and also sets up Resident Evil 6, which I think is impressive in its own right because it came out before 6 did.
Yeah. Plus, there's another movie in between 5 and 6, right? If I remember correctly.
There's Damnation, which takes place just after 5.
Okay.
Sorry, that takes place like right in between 5 and 6.
Okay.
Damn movie.
And then
which will definitely be on the show.
I love Damnation. I think Damnation.
I've never seen it. So, but also, one thing I do want to say, like, when you do see like all those zombies coming out, and like Claire has no gun, because of course she has no gun. I did like that. I'm like, oh shit, things just start breaking down, and then as soon as the airport starts getting infested and the alarm goes up and everybody's running for their life, that's when it cuts off and it goes to Leon.
Yeah, it's like Act 1, Part 2.
Yeah.
There's a very funny part where they're showing the people at the glass windows like being kept in, and this lady's like, "Why are you holding me in here? Like, let me out." And I kind of feel like that's the lady that's like, "Can I speak to your manager?"
Yeah.
Like
the manager's just the president, though. Yeah. She works her way all the way up to the God, who was the president at this point? Ames or whatever? I think it's President.
I forget
Ames.
it.
I don't. It wasn't
Are you
President.
sure it's not Solidus?
It wasn't. Yeah, it was Solid as Snake. It was President George Hughes.
I couldn't remember his name.
It's just the next scene is her in front of the George Washington AI from Metal Gear. Excuse me, I was being held and no one told me what. So the AI is just like.
I did like that scene.
No.
When everybody is trapped behind the glass and they're starting to do the whole like, oh, we got to detox everybody. And also my question was like, I didn't realize right away, but the government actually knows what's going on. Like they know about the virus. They know how to treat it. Hell, you find out a little bit later they have the damn cure for the virus.
Well, yeah. We didn't mention that another character that the final character that's set up in the very beginning is Frederick Downing, who is also the most Resident Evil character ever. Who I'd say like
old white guy.
Fairly effectively goes back and forth between being like a red herring and a real villain.
He's Birkin Light is what I call him.
Basically, yeah, he's basically Birkin Light. But even Birkin, you like are sure he's a bad guy the entire time. Frederick Downing, I'd say they wrote him well enough where you're like, oh, is he actually trying to help or is he part of this? Like, is he a good guy that just got wrapped up in it, or is he planning everything? What's going on?
I thought he was a good guy up until later. So.
Yeah, but he's wearing a white suit. He's got white hair. He wears like thin Wesker glasses. And you're like, this guy's definitely evil.
We're gonna have to definitely talk about him later because I have some questions about his whole fucking role in this movie. It's very weird.
Oh, I've watched this movie enough. I've got it down pat. I can tell you everything.
Okay.
Yeah, like
I've only seen it twice in my life, so I don't got a whole lot.
It hard cuts from like Claire. Actually, I think it's a pretty solid cut too, because it's like Claire and the senator and Ronnie and her aunt all like panicking within the airport, and it like hard cuts to a couple hours later, and it's I keep wanting to call her Laura Bailey. It's Angela Miller and Greg Glenn, the two SRT officers that are like definitely important to the story because they're voiced by Steve Blum and Laura Bailey.
It's so weird though because Greg Glenn. Like when you first meet him in this movie, he's very calm. He's very like, why should we trust Leon? I don't know about this guy, Angela. Yeah, and then they get inside, and they get inside of the airport because they have to go in there and rescue the survivors. And he just starts freaking out. He just goes all Hudson from Aliens 2.
Literally firing his entire mag into a room full of zombies.
Don't get some.
He doesn't know if any living people are hidden anywhere in this building. It's just
I do like that scene though. Well, actually, no. The scene right before that is the girl runs forward and Leon's punching
because he's a fucking idiot.
Greg in the stomach. And she goes into a room and sees a woman, goes like, are you okay? And then, of course, she's not okay because she's a zombie. And then all of a sudden, you see all these zombies rise up after Leon gets in the room. He's like, oh, shit. Like, he's like, do what I do. And that scene was awesome.
Well, Leon, this goes back to every adult.
I feel like
every adult human besides Claire in the Resident Evil series is a fucking idiot. Leon does nothing to, like present any sort of competence at any point when he's talking to them. He's just like, he shows up and he's like aloof and a total dick. And they're like, why should we trust this guy? And Angela's like, he knows what he's doing. He's from the government. They're like, Greg raises some good points where he's like, shouldn't the government have solved this already, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, Greg, you totally get it. And Leon's just like, I'm only going to take 2 of you They're like, don't we need more? And he's like, no. Any reason why? No. Shut up. Come on.
I mean, he does say that he doesn't want to risk more infected, but yes.
Yeah, he doesn't want to
It's
risk
close
more
enough.
infected. So I'm only going to say 2 people.
So stupid. Oh my
But
god.
I think,
You know
I
how?
don't know, I mean, I guess
Yeah, you know how like when there's a bank robbery or like people take a bank hostage, they only send in one SWAT guy because they don't want to risk that one. Like they don't want to risk more SWAT guys getting killed, so they only send in one guy.
well, at least in real life, you get shot by a bullet, you don't change sides. You go,
It's
I'm on
true.
their side now. Like in this, you get bit, you change sides real fast.
It becomes it's
Oh.
instant in this movie,
Yeah.
which is totally inaccurate.
I didn't like
Yeah, I
that.
wanna-
Like the part
I want
early on with the
Go ahead.
when the security guard, there's a part earlier on when it does start the outbreak and you see the first zombie bite a security guard, and by the time he hits the floor, within like seconds he changes.
Yeah, he's
It's
Yes.
super fast.
And that actually leads into the point I wanted to make. There's a weird cut in this movie that they didn't fix or they totally screwed up on, where when the senator is like being freaked out by all the zombies, and you can see some zombies in the background.
Oh yeah.
Some of the zombies actually act like humans, and they're all freaked out and run away.
Yeah.
They
I didn't
messed
notice
that up
that.
on purpose. Yeah, they had to have. Yeah.
Are you sure it
Yeah,
wasn't the
right.
people wearing the zombie masks?
Oh no, it was like real zombies. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was like, that
odd.
was weird.
Yeah, it's like they're like it was like they were trying to just have people freak out in the background. They screwed up the models. They were like, just make the zombies. Oh, so
Yeah.
like in the last minute, they were like, hey, did you fix that zombie problem where the zombies are acting as the
Yeah, of
humans?
course I
They were
did.
like, the game ships today, you know, or the movie ships today. Nobody will notice. It's fine.
Stefan did apparently. Okay,
Yeah.
But
so after I did like
so we're
the
in Act
part-
1, Part 2, where Leon is going in to save Claire and the senator. And the senator's still a dick the entire fucking time, where he's like, the only reason you haven't been killed yet is because I'm here. And it's like, okay, but
they're gonna rescue me.
maybe
It
shut
is
the
kinda
fuck up.
funny. It is kind of funny though that Claire is carrying around a parasol to defend herself.
Oh yeah, we've talked about this multiple times on the podcast. This one scene in this movie where she's like, she's like, I need a weapon, and it hard cuts to her holding an umbrella that's colored like the umbrella logo. She's just like,
And she makes a comment too. She's like, "I wasn't expecting this" or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a funny comment.
I wasn't expecting the umbrella to save the day.
I
Yeah.
did like that because I can't find her weapon. They're like, "Here, have an umbrella," and I'm like,
But yeah, this is Claire being the rescuer again. She's like, because they hear like they hear like the senator's secretary scream, one of his mini secretaries. Even though you see him with a like personal assistant earlier, who's a dude, and at some point they're like, "Oh, that must be the senator's secretary," and I'm like, "Wasn't the senator's secretary the guy? Who? Wait, did he have a personal assistant and a secretary?"
I mean, he was a senator, so you know.
Yeah, but he's like
have
flying, so it's like he takes his PA and his secretary and only 2 security guards.
that.
He walks around with an entourage. He walks around with more people in his entourage than his security team has people.
Hey, he needs someone to get him tea and coffee and make sure the coffee's right and not too hot or whatever the hell he complained about.
But is that the PA or the secretary? Which one does that?
I don't. Probably personal assistant. I don't know.
The fluffer.
He tells the personal assistant to do it, and the personal assistant tells the secretary to do it. And she comes back and thanks the personal assistant. It's just like a total shit job.
It's your turn.
Oh.
It's your turn. You go do this fat ass.
And then shortly after Claire goes out with the umbrella, she runs into Leon, which I like. I did like that scene where they find Leon and the 2 SWAT team.
Yeah.
And Leon, again, is a total dick and just shines his flashlight in her eyes for like 20 seconds. Like, not saying who he is or what's going on. Claire's just freaking out.
They actually play on the tropes of nostalgia when he tells her to get down, because that's exactly what happened in Resident Evil 2.
Yeah.
She's like, huh? Get down.
I like how that's a repeating joke in this series so much that Leon eventually does that to Chris. It's just like, he's just trying to do that to the entire Redfield family. Like, Resident Evil 8 needs to be Leon S. Kennedy and the Redfield, like, dad. Like, an 80-year-old dude. Leon's going in to save.
Get down. Okay.
I'm John Redfield. Get down.
I really do like, and then once they get together, you have a few next scenes of them trying to escape out of the airport, which I do like. And they're like, we're going right through the middle because these things are slow and we can run.
Yeah, this is
And the
my
fat
favorite
senator,
part.
was not okay with that idea. Was not okay with that at all. He's
Well,
like,
he was a
"What?
fat, wobbly
Run!"
bastard. Like he's literally like the humans from Wall-E. Like that's essentially what the senator is. He's just like can't get out of his chair.
When Tiff was watching this movie with me, she's like, he looks like a Batman villain. I'm like,
he does. He looks like the Penguin.
Yeah, that's what she was saying too. She's like, he looks like the Penguin. I need a Vito Penguin. Exactly like yeah, he acts like a villain. He is a villain too. So you know.
What if after he got out of the airport, he gave the speech from Batman, the Penguin speech? Men, women, children, we'll kill them all. Only beautiful, like what does he say? It's like only the beautiful androgynous will be left behind. Just gave that same weird speech.
I feel like Stefan should know this quote because he loves those movies.
I used to know it like word for word. I used to know it by heart. It's such a weird line, such a weird speech.
Oh, but shortly throughout when you have them trying to escape, you do have it. The guy voiced by Spike from Cowboy Bebop gets bit by a zombie, and I did like that scene where he knows, we're done. Yeah.
The airport escape is, I think most people's consensus, not just mine, is that it's the best part of the movie. Because it's the most Resident Evil part of the movie. It's a lot of in jokes, like the whole idea of, well, first of all, let's go back because Leon meets Claire. They go back to the senator, and the senator's just like being a dick to everybody constantly. And it's at some point he says like, what makes you think like she knows what she's doing? And he's like, she was a survivor of Raccoon City, just like I was. And then his like entire outlook changes on her for like a split second. He's like, oh, and then it does a flashback to Resident Evil 2.
Yes.
And
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's great because it keeps their like original Resident Evil 2 outfits for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
It looks totally out of place within the movie, but it's a great callback.
I think it's also kind of like foreshadowing too, because it shows that William Birkin's eye, and it kind of zooms in on it, like, remember this eye because it's going to be important later.
Remember the G virus? Oh, it should have been, the flashback should have been them running and then Birkin showing up and going, G virus, like really obviously.
It was a cool scene. It was cool seeing her. I really like Claire's original outfit in Resident Evil 2. I think it's just cool.
Maybe it was foreshadowing for the Resident Evil 2 remake.
I highly doubt that, considering that came out over 10 years later.
I'll go ahead and say this on the podcast, and sorry, Jesse, but he got pissed off that the original outfit had black sleeves, and in the remake it didn't. He's like, they fucked it up. I'm like, it's just sleeves. It's not that big a deal.
Remember, he also likes Friday the 13th Part 1, so his opinion can't be trusted anymore.
How did he feel about
I don't think he listens to us all that often.
But how do you feel about Leon S. Kennedy having a side parted hair instead of center parted hair? I mean, totally ruined that.
Oh, I think he brought up like some factoid about like Leon and what's his name, Steve, were kind of both based off of Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
So it kind of made sense. Yeah.
I like the idea that they couldn't find an old picture of Leonardo DiCaprio, so they just went with his new hairstyle, and they were like, "Fuck it, no one will notice." Every new game, they use the most recent picture of Leonardo DiCaprio to make Leon. It's like, Resident Evil 9 comes out, and it's like fucking Candy from Django Unchained.
Okay, and then as they're trying to escape the airport, the second part of it is they end up in the middle of the airport and they're shooting down zombies, and the fat senator decides to be a dumbass and knocks the girl off and tries to escape and take advantage of the situation and runs away. And
I don't know how that dude survives that moment when he jumps up in the air and lands on his ass like 10 feet down on solid concrete.
Like he's a comic book character or something? Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
They make a point to show because he kicks Ronnie off the plane too. He's like in such a hurry to save himself that he kicks the little girl off the plane, and she falls the same distance, but she's okay because she lands on like a plane seat that fell off that's cushioned. And it's like it makes a point to show that she lands on that so she's not hurt. But he does the same jump onto like the floor and is fine.
He would not be okay. And then that part where Claire jumps on the ground and grabs Ronnie with no weapon and just holds her like, what are you thinking, Claire?
Like I said, babysitter of the year. That's her only job.
Claire is
always die together, Ronnie.
I mean, that's Claire and like Sherry though. Claire's like, she's gonna save the kid no matter what, even if it's just throwing herself into danger.
And then during the fight, Leon gets tackled by a zombie and he throws his gun to Claire, and then Claire does a pretty cool scene, shoots them all. Yes.
Okay. So say this because then I have a complaint about this part.
I like
I'm
I
glad
like
somebody
that
did.
scene where it's like, isn't it like a first person almost too, where she shoots a couple zombies? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, he throws his main gun, which is I think
Okay, you're
it's
gonna.
his USP. Like that at some point that became Leon's like standard handgun is like the HK USP. No, in 4 I think it was well in 4 he starts with oh god, I can't remember what he starts with in 4. I think it doesn't matter because in 4 the main gun always ends up becoming the Red 9. And if anyone picks any other gun, you're wrong. It's the Red 9 forever. But yeah, it's like he can get the USP in that, but his like main gun in the series was always the wing shooter, the HK VP70, I think is the model of the handgun. It's a really weird looking handgun.
You're right.
Yeah, and it's like you can attach a stock to it. It's an odd little gun. It's a good gun, so it makes sense that he'd use it. But he throws his USP at Claire. It does an awesome first person scene where she shoots like 3 zombies in the head.
I really like that scene.
And then Leon pulls his fucking wing shooter out of his goddamn boot and shoots the zombie on top of him in the head. If Leon had 2 guns, why didn't he give Claire a gun?
I know. I was thinking the same thing, but I guess it's all about
pull that ass, really.
Even if he doesn't give Claire his gun, he's got 2 SRT members with him with multiple guns. They all have their one guy has his M4. The chick Angela has her MP5, but they both have their sidearms. Why didn't they give their sidearms to Claire, who is like a known badass? Like Leon could have been like, I'm a government agent. She knows what she's doing. Give her a gun.
I guess because she's a citizen, maybe, or something. I don't know. It was a weird.
But she's like a Raccoon City survivor. He says this in front of everybody. Like the flashback shows her with a gun.
Leon's a shotgun too.
Whatever. It'd be funny if he was like, "I didn't give this to you because your main gun is supposed to be a revolver." So
and
I know you're not used to these semi-automatics.
And then she gives him the gun back. I want to be like,
yeah,
how do you keep it for a little bit? Like things are not good right now.
Yeah, it's like, did she swear some kind of like she swore off guns in between? Like right after 2 happens, she's like, "I'm joining TerraSafe. I'm never holding a gun again."
Well, they're still called Veronica.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
We're gonna ignore that until we have to play it for the show, I think.
Yeah, I don't plan anytime soon.
Unless we make fun of Steve from that game.
We will. But yeah.
Claire! Cool! 2 gold Lugers, yeah!
Okay. And then she gives the gun back, and then they just run out the door. Like they're like, see the light, run for the light! And then they're outside, and there's a whole military sitting there ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, somehow the doors are open now for some reason, and everyone's out for some reason.
This is my second complaint of the movie, because at this point, Greg, who he freaked out, but then he turned into like an awesome badass again, where he was just kicking ass, saving lives. He gets bit, and they're running to the door, and before they get to the door, Greg is like looking at his arm, knows he's bit, Leon knows he's bit, Angela knows he's bit. I want to point out that at this point in the canon, if the antivirus exists, there is an antivirus, there is a serum for the T-virus. He can survive this.
Yep.
And
that's why they keep people. That's why they keep people when they go outside. They keep them in containment because they have to test to see if they're infected, and if they are, they're going to give them the antivirus.
But Greg is like they're running, and Greg just stops, and Angela's like, "What are you doing?" And Leon's like, "No, he's got this." And it's like, "What the fuck, Leon? You dick!" Like Leon, you specifically know there's a cure. You've used it. Come on.
Oh, he gets bitten. He gets hurt in 2, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, he sees like Sherry's taking it. He knows Sherry's taking it.
Okay.
And he gets infected. This is after 4 when he gets infected with the Lost Plagas, and he has to cure himself and Ashley Graham. He knows cures can't be made.
Good point.
But he's like, nah, fuck it. Like, you could argue that the security guard in the beginning dies. You could argue that his neck gets bitten out and he dies, and that's how he turns so quickly. An argument could be made for that. But Greg is alive, and he's like a healthy SRT member. He's like a beefy, healthy dude. He's jacked. Like, I doubt he's going to die within minutes.
In fact, maybe he should already know that there's an antivirus. Like,
they don't know, though.
Yeah, going
because
on for a
Angela
while.
and Greg are both like, they're both like completely in the dark. They're like, they even have a line that's like, when they first show up, like, oh, this sounds like that thing that happened in that city or something. And it's like, how is that not, like, I know it was kind of swept under the rug. I know in the canon, Raccoon City was kind of swept under the rug. But, like, people know that T-virus exists because it's being used as a weapon. People know that a cure exists because a cure is being synthesized, and a cure was synthesized.
Yeah. Or that a town was blown up in the U.S. It's gone by a nuke.
That was always a big thing. And they kind of like try to address that in Resident Evil 6. But yeah, it's just like people are like finally had it and they just want to know what the fuck happened with Raccoon City. This goes into my idea for the perfect Resident Evil 8 game where they go back to Raccoon City, because after 6, people know what happened there. Surely people are going to want to go back and like investigate it. It all fits in together. Make it happen, Capcom.
I would say people never go back to nuclear fallout sites, but look at Chernobyl. People take pictures there, so people are dumb.
To go to Chernobyl for years.
It's like Bigfoot in the Resident Evil universe. It happened, man.
It's out there. The truth is out there. Oh my God, Resident Evil, you play as Mulder and Scully fighting Lisa Trevor. Make it happen.
Okay, and then after they get out of the airport, that's when you find they start talking more about Will Pharma. And how, well, you do have a little bit about Will Pharma earlier, which we skipped over, where Will Pharma is this company that took over after Umbrella.
Well, Will Pharma is they're a separate company altogether.
Okay. But they're like, they came big because they had an outbreak in India or something, isn't it?
There was an outbreak in India, and they got into a lot of trouble for it. Will Pharma did.
And videos going around of people infected. Like, that's why people wearing the mask in the beginning of this movie and protesting, because of the even though I don't think they realize what they're protesting. I don't think they realize there's really zombies out there.
They know that there was an outbreak. They know that there was like a biological outbreak in India and people died. And that's why Claire is involved, because she works for TerraSave, and she was previously in India, she was kind of like blowing the whistle on Will Pharma. So she and TerraSave are what brought that to light. That's why Frederick Downing, the doctor, is like kind of iffy about her as a character for a long time.
That's why she apologizes later on, then, right?
Yeah, because then the senator and Dr. Downing just lay on the biggest fucking guilt trip ever, where they're like, "Oh, in India, we were trying to synthesize the cure. That's what we could have had this here immediately, but because of TerraSave, we got all this government regulation, and that's why it took so long to get the cure." And Claire's just like, "This is all my fault." It's like, no, Will Pharma was being really shitty. You did a good thing, Claire.
And then you also have a scene where they have all these trucks full of the antidote, and that's where they're freaking out, like, "You had the antidote, you didn't tell us!" And then they blow up the damn antidote. All the trucks just blow up.
It explodes for a mysterious reason.
Yep.
And that's when...
It's a real downer.
Yeah. And that's when Claire reveals that she saw Curtis Miller, and they do this whole thing with, Curtis Miller, he's that eco-terrorist. And Angela all of a sudden is like, "Curtis? I'm Angela Miller. He's Curtis Miller. We're siblings." It's like, that
was stupid.
"Curtis is my brother." And everyone's just standing there watching her, and no one thinks to say, what the fuck? Really? What a coincidence.
Yeah, and that's when you find out.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't know if they go right into his backstory, but they end up going into his backstory where her brother, Curtis Miller, used to, his family, his wife and child were in Raccoon City at the time of everything went down.
After Claire goes on her whole guilt trip, Angela goes on her guilt trip, and it's like, "Curtis was such a good guy. He's the one who told me to keep fighting, blah, blah, blah. He lost his family in Raccoon City. And that's why he used to work for Will Pharma, but he was an actual whistleblower and got fired from Will Pharma because he knew that Umbrella was involved, and he was trying to say Will Pharma was working on this virus as well." Yeah, that's bad shit.
Yep.
You're at it. And then he grew his hair about 3 feet and became the lead singer of Death Clock for a while. He does look like Nathan Explosion. He does look remarkably like a live-action Nathan Explosion.
And this is essentially Act 2 of the movie, then, where both Leon goes with Angela to go to Curtis's house, which is burned down, and Claire goes with
Frederick Downing.
The Wesker version, all in white.
We'll just call him Albino Wesker. How about that? Albino Wesker.
Okay.
Claire and Albino Wesker go to Will Pharma. Yeah,
and that's the part too, that why would you take somebody who works for an agency that kind of caused you a lot of problems? "Hey, why don't you come to our headquarters and I'll show you around? Come on in." I'd be like, no.
This is the part that I had questions for, Stu. I have no idea why he invites her there. It doesn't make any sense. And even the way he acts, it makes no sense whatsoever.
He needed her to make tea with him, remember? He invited her to have tea.
It
This,
makes no sense.
Like all villains do. Have some
Well,
tea.
So 2 parts to this. In the context of the movie, this is the part where they say Frederick Downing is obviously a bad guy in the beginning. This is the part where you make him not so obviously a bad guy. Like, he's working with Claire, he's giving her all this information, he's telling her all this stuff. He's being kind of like selfish about it. He's like, oh, but like I want my my immunity for this too, but here's this information. He's like showing some moral qualms. In the context of the character, he is trying to get Claire in the building because he knows that there's a bomb in it, but spoilers for, I guess, the rest of the fucking movie. He knows that there's a bomb in it, and he knows Curtis Miller is in it about to freak the fuck out. So he's putting Claire in a situation to be killed so that she's no longer a problem for him.
Well, is that why when because he drives her up to the main entrance and he's like, oh, my passcode didn't work. He's like, let me use the master code. Is that why? Is that how he knows?
Is that how he knows?
Because like, how does he know that there's bombs there? Like, how does he already know that?
Oh, yeah, he put the bombs there, and the reason that he can't use his card is because it's not his card. He gave his card to Curtis Miller to get into the building earlier.
Oh, they don't find that, by the way.
No, they don't.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's how Curtis Miller. That's like when he's like, oh, like card doesn't work. It's because he had to get Curtis Miller into the building somehow.
Okay.
That's crazy.
I like that simultaneous. Oh,
we all watched the movie, but
that's not explained
like,
in the movie. That's something that that's something I assume what happens, but that's what makes sense to me. Is
we're just gonna say that's canon because
I think that's what happens.
There is a comment in the end of the movie where they do talk about how he was the one that set it up.
But this is like, again, talking about how this movie is so ridiculously structured. When it goes into Act 2, it's like total shift. Like, before we're in that dark airport, suddenly suddenly Leon and Angela are going to Curtis's house to find him, and it's burning down because there's a little cut to him earlier where he's burning his old house down. He's like getting rid of his old life. So they're at this giant burning wreckage while she's going into her backstory. And Claire and Frederick are at this like giant bright building. So it hard cuts from dark airport to really bright environment. It feels like going into the second chapter of a video game.
It's very much like the intermission before the finale is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like, it's so obviously like, okay, we're done with that. We're moving on to the next part.
It's so weird. It's
very odd because most movies, even like really structured movies, aren't this like defined. Like it follows these very specific beats where it's like 1/3 of the way through the movie, cut to Act 2, hard cut, this is happening. Like, almost like Pulp Fiction, where like suddenly we're telling a completely different story.
Yeah, like I feel like if this was a real movie, what they would have done is Angela would have called his house, he wouldn't have answered, and then she would have somehow found out like, oh, maybe he went to the wherever the thing takes place at the end. What is it? Trisol?
Will Pharma.
Will Pharma. It's like, oh, maybe he went to Will Pharma. We should go there. Oh, Claire's over there. Let's go. Like, that's probably what would have happened in a real movie.
Or
it's just so bizarre.
Yeah, like they go to Curtis's house and Claire calls Leon and is like, shit's going down at Will Pharma. There's a bomb. And somehow they get there within like minutes. It's like on the other side of the city.
There's something wrong with the servers.
I do like the Will Pharma labs, though. Like, say what you will about Resident Evil, they know how to make a really intimidating science lab.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 6 stories tall, and it's like all white and glass. It looks like this very modern, evil building. And it's like the size of a fucking city. It's got like this giant like wall around it. And it's just this big tower in the center. It looks so menacing.
Something that they kind of added in there that I think is in the novels too is it looks like they have a built-in structure where like BOWs can roam.
Yeah.
And it looks like they test them out there in that field.
Yeah.
And I always thought, like, is that what's going on here? Are they testing BOWs?
Well, they even have I think so you find out the lab is, let me mention this first. You find out like the doctor disappears, he says there's a bomb, and like shit just starts falling apart in the lab immediately. Like you get like cuts of security cameras to see like other doctors have been turned into zombies, even though zombies stopped showing up at this point, basically. You just know that there's zombies in the building. Curtis is like hanging out in the center of this giant facility, and even the center is like a big like BOW testing site. It looks like a big cage.
It's really cool.
Also, that's my favorite alt band, by the way. Zombies in the building.
Zombies in the building.
I have a really important. Where the hell is the security in this? There's no security. I was watching this movie with Tiff, and I'm like, there should be security guards. There should be someone at the gate. I'm like, where is everybody?
Well, I think the idea is that like the security guards have left. I don't honestly know. I assume Will Pharma does have security because they have a security office, but like I assume that like Frederick Downing orchestrated like the security guys like mandatory vacation for all the security guys on the same day.
I think it's like Terminator 2, where it's like, Perkins, you can't leave the desk like that. Like he chained him to the toilet in the bathroom.
Yeah, they're all there's 200 security guards, and Downing has individually chained them to various toilets throughout the building.
Okay,
there's
so
Tom
there is no
and
explanation for that
John
part.
and David and Gary.
It's the only way to terrorists.
They all want to talk to Director Downing and disappeared. Anyway, Director Downing wants to see his office. We got to go up there right now. It's like total idiots.
That was just something that bothered me, but that lab was super cool. Like you were talking about, I really was impressed by that whole like that. This part is kind of cool.
It's like something out of like a slapstick movie, like Clue, where the security guards walk into his office one by one, and he's just clubbing them on the head and dragging them into the bathroom. Like calls the next one and clubs them. It's just like not
my attention.
That was a whole day for him. That was the day before. He's just so exhausted.
I didn't even know there were people in this building until they turned into zombies.
Yeah.
I guess you see a couple, but there were a lot of people in this building.
I do like how Leon shows up with the entire army.
Yeah.
But only like one fire team goes on with them. And they get fucking destroyed.
I did like seeing the G virus again. I mean, well, for me, this was the first time because I never played Resident Evil 2 at the time when I first watched this movie, and it is cool seeing when he injects himself with the G virus, he just fucks people up. That was cool.
There's a very cool instance that they put in this movie. Like one of the coolest bits is that they use the lore from Resident Evil 2 again. And they say that Angela, he's after you because he's trying to find a mate. Because what the G virus does is in Resident Evil 2, Sherry got pregnant, a little child, by her dad. Because the G virus, what it does is it looks for the most identical DNA to impregnate. Yeah, so it's just so gross.
Because it's like,
come on, hello,
like
sister.
Almost asexual.
Yeah.
I like so Curtis turns into G virus.
Hey,
Curtis.
Before we go, I need to quote a famous line from Grand Theft Auto 3. My mother's my sister. Okay, continue on.
But so this is like the midway point is Claire, the doctor, Leon, and Angela like getting all this backstory out of the way, getting all this. It's basically like the exposition dump of the movie. It's the entire act 2. Is the doctor giving Claire, and then when Curtis shows up, like Downing's like there's a bomb in the building. I'll try to deactivate it. And then somebody calls again. He's like, I thought I saw Curtis earlier. That's the last you hear from Downing for a while. And Curtis shows up, turns into G virus Curtis, and then it's like hard stop. Act 3 suddenly happens, and Act 3 is like no joke. It is a 40-minute fight between Leon, Angela, Curtis, and occasionally Claire is helping.
It's just so bad. Like I want to appreciate fights like this because I imagine it's how they played out in Resident Evil 2 or any of the Resident Evils really. Mm-hmm. But like for some reason, this movie doesn't use horror to the effect of horror. Like it's just actiony.
Yeah, it's just action
pieces with like biohazards. Yeah.
Hopefully we'll watch Damnation on the show too because Damnation does a lot more with horror.
Mm-hmm.
And then Vendetta, it's like, all action again. Although Vendetta does have the best action scene in the entire Resident Evil series.
Oh, God. I saw that on Facebook. I was like, Jesus Christ, Capcom.
And I wish that was the entire movie. I fucking love that segment. Just for those who don't know, just look up like Vendetta action scene. It's probably like the only legitimately great scene from that movie. But it's just Chris and Leon kicking ass for like straight 4 minutes. And it's like they clear one hallway. It's literally a single hallway.
What's that movie with... What's that movie with Christian Bale?
Oh, Batman?
No.
Equilibrium?
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's like the gun kata.
since this
Yeah,
never
the
comes
Giancana.
up on the since this probably never come up on the show again, I have a story with that movie that I'm gonna. It somehow actually kind of pertains to this one. I used to work at Target around that same time. The only reason I even know that movie existed, there was a girl that I liked that worked at Target that I was hitting on that I invited over, and she was talking about that movie, and I actually bought that movie, have her come over again so we could watch it together. She never came over again, by the way. Spoiler alert.
I like that movie.
You reminded me of that story.
Spoiler alert.
I like Equilibrium. It's a good movie. I feel like there are people out there that love Equilibrium, and they're the worst kind of people.
Yeah.
You
I don't know why.
That movie just because on the show.
I
So
like
they-
that. I do like that movie. It is enjoyable, but I know people that like love Equilibrium, and they're all just like total douchebags.
I think it's because it's based on that form of government, like no
Yeah,
emotion.
People like Starship Troopers for the wrong reasons, or the same type of people.
All right, so you were
People
saying
who like
about
Fight
Act
Club for
3?
the wrong reasons.
Yes.
I'm going to take this back.
Yes.
So I did like that scene. So when you have him become the G-Virus villain monster, I did like, and it's just everything with that. And I like how Claire is trying, like he helps Claire get the elevator. She goes in the basement. He gives her a gun this time.
Yeah.
And he's like, and then there's a part when the elevator closed. He says, "Be safe," and she says, "Ditto."
Yeah.
And for
winks.
some reason, when my wife was watching, she's not here to tell this joke, so I'm going to. She's like, she instead of hearing "ditto," she heard "daddy," and she just started laughing. She's
Daddy.
like, I heard him say, "You too, daddy." And I'm like, what the fuck? Ah!
Claire, this
What?
is the part of the movie where they just reveal that Claire's super horny for Leon, and he's like super horny for Ada. It's just the worst kind of triangle.
It's an inside joke because someone we used to know, a friend of mine ended up dating this girl. He doesn't listen to the show, so I can say the story. And for some reason, she started calling him daddy on public and stuff. And at first, he's like,
God.
"What are you
Don't do that.
doing?" So
Oh,
so
man.
ever since then, it's been that kind of inside joke, be like, and that's what made it think of
I
right
hate
away.
that. I hate that so much.
Me too.
I'm usually not like very against public displays of affection, but well, no, I am. I hate them all, but something about like somebody calling somebody daddy is just like something about saying like Poppy, which means basically the same thing. Totally
Mhm.
fine. Like if you call somebody Poppy, I'm like, yeah, whatever. But if you say daddy, I'm like, ugh, like fucking get a room.
Hey,
Stay
boo.
there and don't ever come out.
Okay, so after that, I did like that scene where she's limping through the hallway, shooting people. That
Just
was
like
cool.
a coat rack falls in her fucking foot or something.
No, she gets. Was it?
It's
nah,
like
she got
it's
stabbed
a
by
segment of
something.
plot because the time bomb goes off. It makes you believe that Frederick Downing is dead.
Yeah,
He
sure
gets
is.
killed by the bomb. Because like he says, like there's a bomb here. I'm gonna like see what I can do to defuse it. And you're like, what the fuck? You're like a biochemist. What do you know about bombs?
A lot.
Mhm.
And then
And
you
it blows
thought,
up, and it's like, well, he's dead, but he dies off screen, so surely he's not dead because it's a movie.
She has such a weird, like, I know the animation is of that time, which isn't that far behind, but she has the weirdest reaction when she finds out there's a piece of glass stuck in her leg.
Yeah, well,
She's just like, oh.
like the
Wasn't
character
that bad.
models look great. Something about the movement of them isn't
Yeah.
great.
Like,
It's I don't know if they used mocap for this. I don't think they did.
I was just about to say, I don't think this is a mocap, and they should have used a
They
mocap.
should have used mocap. I don't know if this was
Yeah.
before mocap was like super accessible. I'm not sure because I feel like they used mocap in Damnation and Vendetta.
What year was this one released?
This was 2008.
Oh.
Right around the same time that
God.
Red vs. Blue was using better mocap. So
I thought the graphics were pretty good in this, actually.
yeah, I mean, like it's the graphics are great. They're like the actual character models look fantastic. When they do
Mhm.
close-ups, they don't look like lifelike, but they look good. They look really good. It's like I don't know. They avoid like the uncanny valley, but they still look really nice and close to humans. That sounds
It's
weird. Like it sounds like an insult to say they look close to humans, but
It's kind of like Spirits Within. Like,
kind
the
of, yeah.
voices don't sync
good
up
movie.
perfectly. The hair is a little like floaty, but it's still there. Like, it looks like hair. I don't know.
I didn't have a problem with it
Yeah,
at all with any of the animation. So, but
Let's see here. Okay, well, another example of mocap from 2008 was the Keanu Reeves "The Day the Earth Stood Still." So take that how you will.
That was a bad movie, by the
That was
way.
a
yes, it
bad
was.
movie.
The original is great, though.
All right,
Uh,
there is a real cool scene that that in this movie, right after what we had mentioned so far, back on track, when you have like when they start fighting the G virus and they end up G virus monster, they end up blowing his ass up, which I did like that because the building starts cleansing itself. And there's a part where the army has been shooting the G virus guy, and they're like, "Let's get in the elevator," and they go in the elevator, and Leon's like, "We'll catch the next one." And then the elevator goes up, the monster jumps up, grabs the elevator, and just starts beating them. And I was laughing.
Yeah. It's
great.
It's like, get on this elevator, you'll be safe. They get fucking demolished. It's almost like a comedy shot.
Oh, they murdered them in that elevator.
It's almost comedic.
And then they go in the elevator because of that. There's a countdown that starts happening where they get sprayed with some kind of chemical, and they're like
with a gasoline-like material. It's like a stuff.
Right. He's like, they're trying to sterilize us, and he's like, no, the building.
Yeah, they're gonna burn the building down.
Which makes sense. This is trying to stop a virus. I mean, because they have the T virus, they have the G virus. I mean, it makes sense.
This is my second favorite aspect of the movie. The first being the airport escape. The second being how the lab functions. I think is really cool.
That lab is messed up.
Yeah, because we talked about it earlier. To get back onto the lab, they spray the gasoline to essentially burn out any organic material in the building, which makes sense because it's like a lab that's secretly working on very harmful biochemicals that can break out and destroy an entire city.
Mm-hmm.
And then sections of the lab can be like decoupled from. You find out that the building is actually sitting over top of like a giant pit, and sections can be decoupled and dropped into the pit like miles under the ground,
which is cool as hell.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept for the building.
It's actually in Resident Evil 6 too. I think it's Jake's campaign.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's Jake's campaign and the end of, the very end of the campaign.
Yeah. So it's been done before. Well, at this time it hadn't been done, so they kind of borrowed it.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept. I think they knew it was a cool concept because they brought it up in Resident Evil 6, and it came back in Resident Evil Damnation, a similar kind of lab, with the secretary's office or the prime minister's office that goes underground. It's a cool way of doing it because it's not an umbrella facility, but it's built up. It's actually, to be honest, it's more advanced than an umbrella lab would be. Umbrella would just be like, fuck it, we don't need any security measures.
Well, what year was the last umbrella lab destroyed? Like 2000? So it's like 10 decades later almost.
Unless you argue the umbrella lab in 2006 in Resident Evil 5.
Wait. Well, I was thinking of the one in Umbrella Chronicles.
Umbrella lab in 2012 in Resident Evil 6.
It's supposed to be the last one, I thought.
Or the whenever, I don't know when Resident Evil 7 takes place.
Well, we have to assume that they built them a long time ago because I think Umbrella was created in the 70s something. Yeah, is what it was. 60s.
It's a really old company at this point, especially.
Yeah, and there's labs all over the place too. There's an Antarctic lab.
Mm-hmm.
I like how Umbrella as a company is like, hey, who do we put in charge of that lab? It's like, who's the weirdest fucking person we know? Make him in charge. Make him the leader. It's like,
that's accurate.
Yeah, that Ashford guy that talks to himself and wants to bone his sister, put him in charge.
Yeah,
that's like a good guy.
I really did like that fight when, as we were talking about the platforms dropping down, where they're trying to get the G virus guy to drop down. I mean, that part was awesome to watch.
Yeah.
I was really confused though, because after he drops down in normal movie fashion, he grabs the girl's foot, and then Leon grabs her, and he's hanging by his foot. And I'm like, how the hell is he holding up the fucking G virus monster and her? But the monster's holding onto a rope too.
Well, if we consider conservation of mass, he technically would weigh the same. He wouldn't have gained any extra mass.
I'm leaving that space in.
As I push up my glasses.
Well, that eyeball has to weigh 100 pounds. Come on, that eyeball.
I agree. I don't agree with Stuart in this test. I mean, I understand where he's coming from, and normally I'm always all for science, but I disagree.
The eye is actually filled with helium. His entire body is filled with helium. That's why he can jump so high.
I don't take.
Why
are you making reasoning out of this? Damn it!
I mean, think about it. Angela's like 108, and her brother's 250, so 358 pounds. Leon could do it, right?
With his foot.
Is it his foot? I thought she grabs her hand
around a metal piece.
He's dangling from like he ties a cable around his foot, so he doesn't have to hang on.
Oh.
He doesn't have to hang on with his feet. He just has to hang on with his.
I thought he was hanging on by his foot.
No, he's not like gripping it with his toe. No. But he's got his leg wrapped around a bar, which you don't have to like exert any energy to really do that. You're just hanging.
Yeah.
Two different people.
No. What is weird is that after like the the thing starts like swinging, and he does this weird like triple backflip with her, and somehow like he does this. They get flung off. He does like this backflip, and somehow still lands on his ass, like right on his fucking head.
That's Leon.
That's Leon. Leon is so cool until he isn't. I do.
He's cool. I don't know what you're talking about.
This movie has like a nice little joke, a nice little like Resident Evil 4 joke where he starts the movie with his jacket, and at some point he loses his jacket.
I didn't catch that.
He never gets. He like takes it off before he goes into Wolf Armor, and he never puts it back on.
Really? I didn't even notice that.
I don't know if he puts it on. I don't think he puts it on when he do the epilogue. I don't think he's wearing it then either.
Oh, okay. We're about done with Act 3 then, except for like a little explanation part.
Curtis gets dropped. Well, first they light him on fire. That doesn't work. Leon and Angela jump underwater to avoid the fire, and then
they go swimming.
And then Leon. Okay, I know this is a movie, and I'm usually pretty forgiving with this, but this is so. I do get annoyed a little bit when this happens in a movie. Leon is underwater with Angela. They're about, let's say, 5 feet away from this giant, thick glass pane. Leon, while underwater, pulls out his pistol, shoots the glass pane, and it shatters and allows them to escape.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot shoot a gun.
Oh, you can't shoot underwater.
Yeah.
It'll fire. If it's closed, it'll fire. I think it's a USP. I think that'll fire underwater. But it will only go about 3 feet before losing all energy.
This was one of the biggest like contentions with Saving Private Ryan when they were getting shot under the water. It's like, no, bullets would stop way before that, before they would hit any of those soldiers.
Because those were bullets that were flying from out of the water into the water, so they were still going fast enough. If you fire it underwater, it loses energy really quickly because of like the way the air bubble implodes, essentially.
It's weird because I saw a video on it and they tested it. It was like one of those, fact check ones, and they shot at water from 50 feet away, and I think it was like 1.5 feet it would stop.
Yeah, dead. It doesn't go very far, but I think it's Saving Private Ryan. Like, I don't know. I don't think did it go through anybody underwater? I think it did actually. I think you're right about that.
It did. Yeah.
Those are also fired from very powerful weapons too. So,
well, not back then.
World War II. Very powerful. World War II was like not. I mean, don't get me wrong. There were some very powerful guns in World War II. Look at you, PGM. It's for my gun nerds out there. The tank sniper that would take out tanks.
So yeah, and when I did Google it, it did say a revolver could shoot underwater.
It can shoot, but it will lose all of its energy very quickly.
It said about a few feet and is deadly or so.
It's not deadly. If we were underwater, and we're not going to test this, but if we were underwater with say like a 38, and you were 3 feet away from me, and I shot at you with a 38 underwater, it wouldn't even pierce your skin. It would just. Right. It might not even reach you. If it did, it would just bounce off.
I'm pretty sure there's YouTube videos of this, if anyone's curious, by the way.
Smarter Every Day did it, actually. Smarter Every Day did it with the slow-mo guys. They fired a Glock and a revolver underwater, and they filmed it in slow-mo. It's a very cool video.
I should also mention, too, that I have tried to do what Leon did for Angela, and that's that he tried to give her
underwater?
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
That does not work. I have tried that with a girl before, and that does not work.
No, because it's just like performing CPR on a live person.
It's like asking to drown, really.
Well, like
let's drown together, honey.
In movies too, where when you give somebody CPR, you're blowing oxygen into them. That's not how fucking CPR works. In fact, first of all, they don't even tell you to do. They don't even tell you to blow into people's mouths for CPR anymore. Because it doesn't really do much and it's gross, and you can actually get You can actually get sick from it if the person has a disease or something.
You learn new things in the show every day.
Yeah, that's just like the idea of that was like to you do your compressions on your chest. They've determined that that is enough to compress your lungs and expand them again. Really, you did that, and they blew into expand lungs. At some point, they were like, "Hey, that's not really that much of an extra step. That's really not doing anything extra." So, for a CPR, you'll chest compressions now.
Exactly.
They will, when they show up, they will have like the weird breathing apparatus, but that's different.
Okay, so after they escape,
Tune into games my mom found. Learn about guns and CPR.
After they escape this place, that's when you finally find out that the albino Wesker turned out to be a villain who I think used to work for Umbrella, who then sold the virus, the T virus, and brought the T virus and G virus, which hey, he did a better job than Hunk did to Will Pharma.
I know that this is my third complaint about the movie is that Leon doesn't figure this out. Leon is told about it. So Leon's stupid and Claire's stupid. Like Claire should have been the one to figure this out because Claire is the only smart person in the entire Resident Evil series, aside from maybe Rebecca.
I'm glad we agree on that, Stu.
But it should have been Claire to figure it out. Instead, what happens is Claire's just like, well, that was all useless. And Leon's like, not quite. We just found out about, hey, remember that guy we talked about in the news 2 hours ago at the beginning of the movie? His like right-hand man folded and told the UN everything and admitted that the person they got the virus from was Downing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they find out that Downing's actually a bad guy. It should have been Claire. It should have been Claire putting the pieces together.
Yeah, it really should have been. They could have easily put that in.
Yeah, it could have definitely been Claire. I appreciate that they tried to have like a setup and payoff from the beginning of the movie, but it just would have made more sense if it was Claire. I'm looking at the end of the movie right now, by the way, and Leon does actually get his jacket back.
Okay.
It is a different jacket, though, because he lost his jacket in Resident Evil 4. He never got that back. It got blown up.
There are two other scenes. Then you have the scene where the albino Wesker's sitting at a car to arrange somebody to pick him up to buy the virus because he has the virus and the key are in a case.
Yeah,
I want to say.
Yeah, he's just sitting like slightly outside of town. Like,
I would have just kept driving and not stopped driving if I were him. Like,
you're fucking a rich scientist. You don't have like Bluetooth in your goddamn car. Can't just make the call from the road.
This is 2008, so you know. Bluetooth wasn't as big.
Bluetooth existed. I had Bluetooth in my car.
I didn't say it didn't exist. I said it wasn't as big, you know. So he had to stop and make the phone call.
Well, he wanted to have a cigarette too. He didn't want to smoke. It was a rental. He didn't want to smoke in it.
He was very concerned. You know, that criminal was very concerned about the car. Oh, and I did like that.
He's like too. Like he's evil now, so he's smoking. Like this is the first time you see him smoke in the movie, and it's only because you know he's evil.
I did like that scene where they both put their guns up to him, and he's like, "I'll destroy the virus," and Angela put the gun to the back of his head, and he's like, "Save me! Don't shoot me! I didn't mean it." I mean, he all of a sudden just starts like crying almost, and put the gun to his head.
Seems like it would be a bad idea to bring Angela along. Like she's pretty emotionally invested in this case.
Yeah. I would have shot. I mean, you think about he's the reason her brother died. But here, have a gun. Why don't you arrest this guy? We have all these other officers we could ask, but we're going to bring you along.
Like, surely his case is going to get dismissed. That's like clearly a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Also, she's SRT. I don't know if, I don't really know the SWAT procedure on arresting people. I don't know if she's really the proper arresting officer in that case.
I'm pretty sure.
Also, a cop arrested him and not Leon. Leon's a government agent. Like, surely he should be the one. Anyway, a lot of questions about that.
But also, yeah, he did work for Umbrella, right? Like, he did escape Raccoon City, if I remember. Like, I'm not wrong with that.
He used to work for Umbrella. He stole the T virus
and the G virus.
Yep.
Like I said,
earlier,
he's better than Hunk. So, Sam, if you're listening, this guy is better than Hunk. He actually succeeded in his mission.
He is smarter and better than Hunk.
Mr. Death.
He does get caught. Hunk is presumably still out there. Hunk's in Raccoon City still. Like he's in this constant war with Lisa Trevor. You
like
run into him as Boulder and Scully.
The imaginary game where Hunk has just got to take out Lisa Trevor.
It's Hunk. Yeah, you find Hunk. You find Lisa Trevor. This is the rest of this podcast from now on is like every now I'm just instead of bringing up Dragon Ball Z, I'm just gonna bring up my fictional Resident Evil 8.
Yeah, it reminds me, we got through last episode without any Dragon Ball Z references.
I think I made a slight joke about DBZ Abridged at some point that nobody caught, but I'll have to go back and check. It might have gotten cut.
But also, then you have the weird epilogue. After all that, you have the weird epilogue of the movie where, for some reason, Leon and Claire are wearing the same clothes.
Yes.
And the SRT girl's wearing a purple dress, and they're standing on the cliff. I'm not sure what cliff, why they're standing there. I'm like, why is she all of a sudden wearing a dress? I'm like, what's going on here? And I still don't know. I don't understand the point of that scene.
I don't know if it's the dress from the picture. Because she's got this picture of like her and Curtis's wife and daughter.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same dress. I'm trying to find a picture of the picture.
I'll go to Okay, as I was saying, but it's just a weird scene, and then that's when she makes a reference about her having the underwater. They go diving together, and Claire's like, "When'd you go diving?" He's like, "I'll tell you sometime," or something stupid like that.
She's wearing a white blouse, so yeah, she's just. It's very jarring to see her go from SRT uniform to purple sundress.
I think it was nice, though, that it pointed out how Leon, even though he's slightly a pervert, he's not willing to go date the president's daughter because she's underage. But Angela, she's okay.
Yeah,
I'll go swimming with her.
I'll go diving if you ever want to go diving.
Yeah.
This is such like, okay, so hold on. Actually, my theory about the dress now is that because the dress physics actually looks pretty good, my theory is that they just wanted an excuse to like show off this engine that they made the movie with, and they were like, we got to put some flowy stuff in there.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of her too,
and show how giant her fucking boobs are.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Again, Ashley, Angela, no difference.
How big are Ada's boobs?
Supposedly, Hunk did survive Raccoon City, by the way.
Yes, he did.
Okay,
he did.
Yeah, Hunk is 100%. He's still alive. He's still out there.
Okay.
Because I thought he was going to be involved in Resident Evil 7, but I don't think he was. So
he was.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
maybe
8. They haven't quite explained the whole. There's a lot going on at the end of Resident Evil 7 that I think has never been explained really, not yet at least.
It's explained more in the DLC,
okay.
But it's not.
It's not Hunk.
It leaves questions to be answered. Yeah.
So like, who the fuck? Who's this guy? What's that thing? Why is he? Yeah. Okay. I don't want to say anything about it, but yeah, it's a very confusing ending to that game.
It's going to be on the podcast one day.
It will be on the podcast.
All right.
But I do like how cheesy that ending is, where Hunnigan is like standing over this cliff by herself, and then Leon and Claire like enter from off screen at separate sides, which is like almost creepy.
Not Hunnigan. Hunnigan is in this though.
Hunnigan does call Leon.
She's not standing on the cliff.
Yeah.
That's the Hunnigan girl. Yeah, we forgot to mention Hunnigan is on the phone periodically. Who is from Resident Evil 4? I did like that. Was kind of a cool touch.
Hunnigan is I feel like Hunnigan really is underutilized. We need a Hunnigan story. Doesn't she takes over? I want to say her and Clive O'Brien, like, oh god, I want to say they like fight the BSAA at some point. Like, there's a BSAA like inner conflict. I think.
I have no idea.
For another episode.
No, I don't know. Hunnigan's like poor Hunnigan. She just never shows up.
Yeah, she's like Leon's Q to James Bond.
Exactly.
Any last things you guys want to say about this movie?
Well, we got to talk about the whole end of it. Because then after this whole thing, well, first of all, there's a very funny scene where Claire and Leon are like, "Want to hang out? Nah, I got shit to do." Like both of them kind of imply that they like want to hang out, and then both of them separately say, "No, we are both busy." And Leon's like it's like a series of comedy shots where it's Hunnigan and then Leon and Claire just appear, and then it's a close up on Leon, and suddenly there's a helicopter behind him. And he's like, "You want to ride?" And Claire's like, "No thanks, I've got a limo." And suddenly behind her is Ronnie and her aunt. Like,
makes no sense.
It's just like a series of hard cuts that are all. I think they're all supposed to be really funny, but it's just like, what the fuck is going on? How come we couldn't hear that helicopter earlier? It's just right next to them. And then, then we go into the actual like epilogue of the movie, which is only like a minute and a half, but this is like where it really leads into 5, where shitty senator gets killed somehow. You don't know how.
Oh yes, I wanted to mention this. I almost forgot. Thank you.
Yeah. He's just like dead at his desk with a newspaper covering his face because that's how you know he's dead. Because I like how that's a trope in movies where somebody will be killed at their desk and just have like a paper on their face, like.
Oh yeah.
As he also got arrested for he resigned from office over allegations of insider.
He's not being arrested. He's a U.S. senator, Mike. U.S. senators never go to jail.
Yeah, we're seeing that in reality right now. Oh, that's a different story.
Yeah, but that trope is so funny to me. Like somebody would walk into his office and see him limp at his chair with a newspaper covering his face, and they're like, "Oh, he's just sleeping." Like they just leave him there for days. It's like, "Oh, he's so tuckered out."
What's that smell?
Yeah. He spilled his strawberry jam all over himself. I'll clean it up later. Just bleeding through the paper.
And then you see his computer deleting. And I think even when I saw this 2008, it didn't mean anything to me or it didn't click. But you see his computer deleting everything off it, and of course one of the shots says Tricell on it.
Yeah,
which meant
because Tricell. Yeah. Tricell's spy deletion software has the Tricell branding on it for some fucking reason. It's the classic Umbrella thing where they gotta mark all their shit, and it's like that's just like the idea of like somebody's sitting at their computer, like somebody at BSA is like holding onto all their files, like they're collating everything, and then all of it starts getting deleted. They're like, oh shit, who's doing this? Tricell. It's like, oh goddamn it, like just don't put your name on your deletion program. It's a virus.
Because Tricell didn't even exist until Resident Evil 5, so this is the first anything you see of Tricell.
And then it shows like the ruins of the facility. I think it's a facility, and they are picking up pieces of the G-virus, like of Curtis's remains, and putting them in containers, and it's a bunch of guys in hazmat suits with Tricell all over.
Gigantic hazmat suits
that are just covered in Tricell logos.
Because that makes sense.
They're all wearing extra large hazmat suits.
Yeah, I mean they are. Like if you didn't watch this movie, you'll see what I mean.
They can't actually see because Tricell is like written over their visors. It's just completely blind. It's like that scene from Talladega Nights where he can't see out of his windshield. He's like, I can't see a damn thing, but I sure do love Fig Newton. I can't see a damn thing, but I sure do love working for Tricell.
These are the only outfits left.
I mean, that's a complete, because Tricell plays a big part in Resident Evil 5.
Yeah, Tricell, which we just say it's Resident Evil 5, or Tricell is a shell corporation that is just Umbrella.
Okay, that I didn't even really know. I haven't played 5 in so long, so I don't really remember any of that story.
Yeah, that's like the big reveal in 5 is like they're trying to find all this stuff out about Tricell, and they're like, Tricell is Umbrella. And it's like, yeah, no shit.
No shit, Chris.
Oh, it was it was canon all along. It's exactly the same thing. I think
we covered everything with this movie. I do have one thing I want to say before we start closing this up. There actually is a mobile game for this movie.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't even know existed.
Oh, you played
until
it?
I was Googling for this. I'm like, what? A game? And I actually I tried to find it online. I found something that would lead to it, but it's delisted everywhere else. So I found it in a way that I'm not going to mention. But it is online if you really want it. Google's your friend.
What is it? What's it called?
It's Degeneration, I think.
Oh.
Resident Evil Degeneration, the game.
It is. It's basically a PS1 game of Resident Evil 4 taking place in the same setting as the movie, but you have an over-the-shoulder view. The last boss actually, you have to guide him into a jet engine.
So it's like Overblood.
Yeah,
Nice.
And you literally, as Leon, guide him into a jet engine. You turn the button on. He goes into it, and Leon's like, "Nice!" And then the game ends.
That's awesome.
It's also on N-Gage for anyone who has an N-Gage looking for a reason to play it. It's on N-Gage.
Wow, is that still
so
a thing?
bad?
No, N-Gage has been gone, but I'm sure there's an N-Gage emulator.
I wonder if you could still get, because I think N-Gage was on Nokia, right? It was only on Nokia phones.
Nokia, and then it was on iPhone for a while, but I think they delisted it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's delisted. I was Googling it and I found someone that posted a link to it, but I didn't download it. But yeah, it's hard to find.
There's got to be someone out there, because this is the internet. Somebody out there has to have jailbroken their iPhone and they're still running N-Gage on it.
Oh yeah.
One guy who's like, no, N-Gage was the best system ever. It's just desperately playing every N-Gage.
All right. This episode went a lot longer than I thought it would. I should have known.
This game is... this guy keeps saying fucking game. This is not a game. This is a movie. It just looks like a cutscene.
Oh my god, this did go a long time.
After we cut this down, it definitely won't be as long. But this,
I don't know how much cut do you think I do in editing, but there's not a whole.
This recording is about the length of the movie. We're
we're at an hour and 31. Yes, 96 minutes of the recording.
The movie is about an hour, not counting the credits. It's about an hour and 40 minutes.
So in the time that you listen to us bitch about this movie and talk about it, you can also watch the movie.
Let's just leave 5 minutes of silence into the podcast, and so that way the podcast will be longer than the movie. Like I'll just like get up. Like I'll just we'll get up. I'll go get a drink, go to the bathroom or something. We'll come back in 5 minutes.
All right, I think we should move to Shelfer Box. I'm gonna go first, actually, because I want to, and I'm gonna put this on the shelf because I honestly enjoyed this movie. And even though I hadn't watched this in 2008 and I almost forgot it existed until I was like, if we should do this on the podcast, and I found it, I like this movie. I think it adds a little. It doesn't really add that much to the overall story, but it adds a little bit. It's entertaining. It's worth your time to sit down and watch it. Definitely going on the shelf. How about you, Stefan?
I
know the answer already, so.
Man. All right. So there's going to be a little bit of controversy here, but I actually enjoy the first live action Resident Evil movie more than this movie.
That's fair.
The first live action movie is great. So is the second one. So is the fourth.
People unfairly shit on the first live action movie.
So I feel like somebody somewhere just punched their monitor or their phone or something.
Joke's on you. We don't have to pay for that shit.
But no, this movie isn't what I wanted, because when I first saw it, it's Claire and Leon, and the first thing I think of is Resident Evil 2, and I just kind of wanted more of that, more of the horror, more of them. It's kind of funny because their clothes actually are like different versions of their clothes in Resident Evil 2.
Claire has to wear her like classic. Like Claire always has to wear red for some reason.
Yeah, it's just the same thing over and over again. And a little bit of the movie too is preying on nostalgia, which I'm not a fan of for some reason. I don't know, because it probably just points to the fact that this isn't what I wanted. But I still think it's a good movie. It's just not the movie I wanted. So I'm gonna put it in the box. Stu.
This is also kind of, I really do enjoy this movie. I'm gonna say it's going on my shelf because I do enjoy it as a Resident Evil movie. As a movie, there are things I appreciate about it. I appreciate the CGI. I appreciate
CGI is good.
As a Resident Evil fan, I appreciate the airport escape scene. I think the whole airport section is great because that's when it feels like the most Resident Evil. That's when it feels like it could have the most horror aspects. To agree with Stefan here. Like, that's when it feels like it could really do some good scares and stuff.
Yeah.
It's got that, like, atmosphere to it that's kind of missing from the rest of the movie. I think as a movie, it's not great. Like I said, it's so rigidly structured to the point where it's like this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. It's very clear, like, we're moving on to the next thing. We're not going to talk about this anymore. That works for some movies. Don't get me wrong. That's not a bad thing necessarily. It doesn't work for this. It feels like a video game where it's like you're skipping to chapter 2 all of a sudden, and it's an entirely different level. I like the characters because they're very Resident Evil. They're very like over the top and ridiculous. Ron Davis he's basically like the Penguin from Batman. So yeah, it's going on my shelf for weird reasons. I don't think I would recommend this to everybody. I'd only recommend it to like hardcore Resident Evil fans, I think. Because I don't know. Like, Mike, you're not a super big Resident Evil fan, and you really liked it. So
I love the story. I just don't really care for the original like tank controls. I'm bad at those, but I love Resident Evil as a whole.
Oh yeah, it's just like it's got a lot of lore in the movie. It's a fun movie. I don't think it's a great movie. I think it's got some really fun moments in the movie, though. So it's going on my shelf for that. And I'm pretty forgiving when it comes to movies.
You are, Stu. Did anyone else notice how Leon's hair does not change through the whole movie?
No,
it's perfectly coiffed the whole time.
Well, I suspect that Leon has like a mountain of gel in his hair whenever he's anywhere on screen. Because it also like looks super gelled and straightened. Maybe it's plastic. Maybe Leon has like plastic hair. He's actually bald and he's kind of insecure about it because he's so young.
He's calling Barry, like, hey, you got any advice, Barry?
Yeah.
All right, I think it's time to start wrapping this
Barry's just
episode
like,
up.
I distract everybody from my bald head with my giant gun.
All right,
it's a really
definitely
tiny gun, so I don't know if that's
Definitely time to start wrapping this up. First, I want to thank everyone for listening. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Also want to thank Balby, a.k.a. Mike Stoney, for our awesome intro and outro. Cool Kid Squad from his EP Bite the Bullet. I want to thank everyone for listening, and I hope you enjoyed our spooky movie for October. Everyone have a wonderful night.
Yeah, and listen to this podcast so that we can do an episode on Damnation. Much better.
Yes.
Also, this did go longer than the movie, by the way.
Yes. Awesome. Anyway, back to
Bye,
the
everybody.
when Dixon tried to kill that reporter.